And we are recording now. We are waiting to be live on WPAT radio to 10 million homes. We have approximately 30 seconds to go. And when we do, I will introduce the radio show. I will introduce our audience and our speaker and what we're going to be talking about. And but we're just going to wait for the signal from the control room that we're live. And I believe we're going 10 seconds, and we are now live. Hello and welcome to CFC Radio. We are live on WPAT 9:30 a.m. in New York City to over 10 million homes. 10 million homes with stories that people want to hear, because let's be honest, the mainstream legacy media is blocking this stuff out. So at least at this particular point, America has alternatives. We hope we continue to have alternatives in the future to get the message out of what's really going on in the country. And today I have a repeat guest. And the guest I have is going to be talking about something very interesting. But please, I want you to know that we are live right now. You can go on the radio on your internet at WPAT930am.com and hear us on the audio. But you can also go and watch us live on YouTube. Just go youtube.com/CFC page, and we are live there right now. So we're excited about that opportunity and what we're going to be talking about. Now, let's get to it. We have a lot to discuss, and I want to introduce our guest and give some background. So first of all, California, go west, young man. That's what they all say, right? But, we're going to go to a different west. We're going to go to not California. We're going to go to a new California. And I have a person on the line with us, Mr. Paul Preston, who's been on with us 7 months ago to give us his outline of a plan to create California into two separate states. And this new state would be called New California. We're going to be talking about this in detail, but let me introduce Paul Preston. Paul, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be back after my 7-month hiatus.
Yes, it's good to have you back. And what we want to know is during this time and during the last 7 months, we really want to know what's happening. I do want to share with you there has been some interesting news. Let's go first to the Gateway Pundit story that was just recently on. This is why I called you, Paul. You could save the 2024 election. Now, even if the Democrats dump in thousands and hundred thousands of votes, if California goes a certain way, the country will go that way. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think if especially New California goes that way, the country's going to go that way. I do.
So basically, there's a model that's talked about. I'm looking at the Gateway Pundit article by Joe. With Lincoln and how he was able to get the votes in to make things happen. Do me a favor, tell me a little bit about what that means, Joe. Joe, I can't see you. I mean, Paul, I can't see you.
Well, I'm here. I
Paul?
can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me? I'm still here, but the recording stopped. So it looks like I'm still on the program. So I'll go ahead and pick up from here. But this particular article and what happened in the history of it is how the state of Nevada became a state. It's kind of an interesting story. It's a very fascinating story to find out about it. But Nevada became a state in 1864, and at the height of obviously the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln decided to take the territory of Nevada and turn it into a state. He needed it. He needed it for its electoral votes, which would have been 3 electoral votes, 2 senators representing 2 senators and 1 member of the House of Representatives, because it's a very small state in terms of population, but it's still a state. And so they came into some interesting circumstances and problems. One of the problems is that they had to figure out how to get the Constitution to Washington, D.C. in time for a vote so that statehood could actually be achieved before the session ended in Congress. And this whole story broke out when they figured out, well, we can write the Constitution, we'll get it all done, and we'll ship it off. We'll send it to Washington, D.C. by way of perhaps the boats. In other words, take it down to San Francisco, and a schooner would go around, the down beyond South America, then up and over into the Atlantic and into Washington, or it'd make its way to Panama, and they could hike it across Panama, the isthmus there, and then pick it up in the Caribbean and sail into Washington, or they could go overland. Those were the only ways in which you could get a letter to Washington, D.C., but it would take months to make that happen. And they didn't have months, as it turned out, when they got their Constitution and everything all put together. They figured out that they had a problem, that it had to get to Washington sooner. So can you hear me there?
Yes, I'm back. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. I got knocked off.
Well, anyway, so I just kept on talking about what's going on with your.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. Let's keep on talking.
Well,
I'm going to set you up online.
Anyway, so what happened is that Nevada became a state. Okay, you want me to start over?
No, go ahead.
So Nevada became a state following this whole brouhaha about the Constitution, and the Constitution got over to Washington, D.C. by way of telegraph. It's the first time a Constitution or any document was actually transmitted over electronic means. It was, most of the time telegraph was just for small messages and things like that. But this time, because of the fact that they had to get the document before Congress, before the session ended, they only had 2 days to do it. So they took all the pages of the Constitution of Nevada, and through dots and dashes, set up relays all throughout the nation to get that information to the war room in the White House, to get that Constitution to Washington. The Constitution was presented to Congress. Congress approved it. They approved it just in time for the election. And of course, the rest is history, because what happened in the election of 1864, Lincoln was reelected by a very close vote. He needed the three votes, electoral votes from Nevada. He got them. And actually, it's kind of interesting. He needed 3, but he got only 2, because one of the members who was part of the electoral vote got sick in a snowstorm, and he didn't show up. So it became even more difficult. But by way of the Congress, he got the votes he needed to, are you ready for this, approve the Emancipation Proclamation in the Free the Slaves bill. That was very, very important. Well, we're just having a hard time making this show. I can see that. We'll just wait until we get back in the control room and see what we can do here.
You're still on the air. You've been on the air, and I don't know why I'm having problems. But can you hear me now, Paul?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
So you were you were on the air by yourself.
Yeah. Well, I went silent after that last one. I'm not too sure what's going
I
on.
am so embarrassed. It's never happened before, but I think that
Happens all the time. There you go.
yes. And I'm trying to see if we can if I can go live on the so okay, it's not letting me go live on YouTube, so I'm just recording. So, but we are on the air. I'm back, they tell me. All right, let me share this with everybody. I want to share your website, Paul. And I want to get to the map, because I think the map says a lot at one time. So explain to me what this map means.
Well, what you see there, California is made up of 58 counties, and it's a very large state. As you can tell, it's one of the largest states in the nation. And trust me, I just got done driving from Los Angeles all the way up past Sacramento. That's about a 7-hour drive. And we do this once or twice a month, actually. Somehow I have to go from either north up to Shasta and that whole area, Siskiyou County and so on, to San Diego. We've done that before. That's a 10-hour drive. But this is all stuff that just the size and scope of it, you can see it's pretty amazing. But the red area that you're seeing right there is an area that represents 20 million people. And that's New California. And the yellow areas, which you see is Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento, that represents 20 million people also. So it's a simple, process. Just say to figure out who's going to be California and who's going to be New California by simply where the people are located. And we chose that route because we looked at all different types of ways in which you can divide up the state politically and everything else. And none of it made really any sense until we looked at the populations and we said, well, that makes really a lot of sense. Because
what you're telling me, I'm kind of shocked. There's what 1, 2, 3. There's 8 little counties here. I think I count 8. I don't know if that's right. Those 8 little counties, which I guess is San Francisco and Los Angeles, make up 20 million people, which is half of the whole population of California. Is that right?
That's right.
Aren't there other cities that like San Diego and San Jose and
well, San Jose's in that yellow area.
Oh, I see.
That's the whole Bay Area right there. That's really the whole Bay Area. So that captures, you got at least 12 million, almost 12 million in the yellow area of Los Angeles. Then you have at least 7 to 8, going into the other 2 areas.
Wow. Okay, so you split it up 50-50 roughly between these 8 counties and the gigantic areas, which obviously are not as well populated.
That's right. But in order to get our numbers, we had to take San Diego County and also Orange County. And Orange County is very rural. A lot of people don't understand that it's more urbanized or suburban than it is urban. And the same with San Diego. So that was their qualifiers for a population base for them.
Where's Orange County? Where is Orange County?
Just south of Los Angeles that you see there in the bottom.
Okay, right down here.
That's Orange County. Yeah. Then there's Riverside County. Then further down, if you move the map up, you can see San Diego and Imperial counties. And so the state split, that's the way it turned out. And we're very happy with that. Some people say, well, it have to be contiguous. The state doesn't have to be contiguous. It doesn't have to have contiguous borders. You have several states, including, I think it's Wisconsin,
Michigan, right?
Michigan, right? Yeah, Alaska, Hawaii, they're not contiguous. And there's no reason why this needs to be contiguous either. But the rural versus urban model is really what we have here. And we looked at it and we considered it, and it just makes a lot of sense because what's happened here with the New California model, it's sort of a disruptive model in the sense that it's coming. This is the first time statehood has happened since since 1959. And since then, there's been a lot of changes in the laws and in the constitutional makeup by way of the Supreme Court, one of them being a decision called Reynolds versus Sims. In 1964, this was yielded down from the Supreme Court and said that all these little counties that you see here prior to 1964 had senators in them. And so every county was supposed to have a senator so that they can go to the state senate and create what we would call a bicameral legislature. So your legislature would have a House of Representatives and also a Senate, just exactly like the U.S. Legislature is. But that did away with that decision did away with the idea that a senator would represent a sovereign area such as a county, and it based the premise that the senators would now be based upon population by people. Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you look at.
And that was a nationwide ruling, not just a California ruling.
It was a nationwide ruling. That's correct.
And that was 1959. Wow.
That was in 1964, following 1959.
So in other words, before that, just so we're clear, I'm going to take it slow if you don't mind. I know that you're very familiar with this, but before that, Paul, every county within a state had a state senator. Now it's divided up by population. Now for the U.S. Congress, did that change also?
No.
Okay.
The U.S. Congress, or U.S. The legislature, the senators, there's only 2 senators per state. Yet they have the same equal power in the legislature as the House of Representatives as a separate body. But the Senate in the U.S. Senate represents states. So California has 2 senators, regardless of population. That was the whole miracle of everything, regardless of population. So the population of Maine, which is very small, didn't matter. They still have 2 senators. North Dakota still has 2 senators. Texas has 2 senators. New York has 2 senators. That was the great miracle that came out of the Constitutional Convention of 1787, in which they came up with bicameralism. And bicameralism gave them literally a Republican form of government, because representatives were true to not just the people, but also the resources and all the things that go into a state. So states actually got representation.
Right. And you said something important I want to point out. It's a republic. Everybody says, oh, we're a democracy, we're not a democracy. I know the difference, and just a very quick explanation for our audience. The United States is a republic. It is not a democracy. Tell us why, Paul.
Well, it's because of this fact that you have representative government in 2 bodies within a legislature. So in each one of the bodies, in other words, each of the senators and the House of Representatives, the representatives represent the people of a given state, and the senators represent the states and all the things that go into the state. So, you've got business, you've got commerce, you've got resources, you've got people in general. You got governments, multiple governments, county governments, city and governments, and so on. All that is represented by the senators that you find in every county, but it's also that way with every state. So all the things that are represented from that standpoint in a state are represented in the Senate. So it's not a matter of representing people in the Senate. It's a matter of representing the resources and everything that go into the state. And a lot of people don't think that states need to be represented, only the people. And that's what happened in Reynolds versus Sims. They said, no, we'll do away with the state part of this, the state senators, and we'll say that they have to be reactive to people. And of course, what that led to in California is it led to setting up districts for senators to represent based upon population. And now what that does is it ruins the whole formula for the representation of the basis of our republic, and that's the counties. Counties are the fundamental building block for the entire nation. And we just took away representation in 1964, where sovereign counties would no longer be sovereign. And
So what happened was, in a nutshell, more great amount of power was then consolidated into the state legislatures into cities, correct?
correct, where the population base was strong.
And what's going on is that if you win the cities, you can ignore the hinterlands. And
That's correct. And I'll give you a classic example. Brian Dolly, who represents Senate District number 1 in California, he represents 11 counties of California. Now, you tell me how Brian Dolly, and we pose this to him at any time, and he would certainly agree. How can he represent all the interest of 11 counties at one time? He can't.
No,
It's just impossible. And he represents 1 million people fundamentally. It's the numbers have changed a little bit because of the recent census, but 1 million people in 11 counties. And that's exactly what it does. If you take a look at the map and you see Sacramento and you see San Francisco and you see LA, in that area, you have about, of the 40 senators California has.
okay, we're looking at the map now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if you take a look at those yellow areas, you're going to find that they probably have, of the 40 senators, 30 just in the yellow areas. Just in the yellow areas. So you can see there's that consolidation of power like you're talking about. And anytime there's a vote, it always ends up that the urbanized areas, they get what they want. And it leaves out representation for the rural areas. So that's why they call it lack of representation.
Now, I want people to understand the difference between, and by the way, we are still live on YouTube, youtube.com/@signal CFC page, Christian Fellowship Council page, CFC page. But explain to me what the maroon or red counties, there's 58 counties. There's 8 of them that are yellow and 50 roughly, maybe 8 or 9, but 50 that are red. What does the red mean?
Well, the red would mean that that's a designated New California area. When we first made the map, we made the map with blue and yellow. And it was kind of interesting. Anytime a state was going to anytime a county, was going to be chartered in the New California state movement, we would paint it with that maroon color. The maroon color is the state color. It comes from the maroon that's off of the star that you see on the left, and that's the original Alvarado star from the original Declaration of Independence movement of Alta California, or what was known as either Alta or Nuevo California back in 1836. And that was the first time they read a Declaration of Independence declaring their independence from Mexico, from the Californios, declaring that Alta California would be its own state, actually its own nation. And so that star was the Alvarado star. It was a big, huge flag that they created. They put that big red star on it. It has that kind of little cant to it. That was also in tribute to Texas, who at the same time, except in March of 1836, they declared their independence. And of course, with the war, of course, it's the following that. Santa Ana.
Paul, what does the red mean versus the yellow? I want to make sure.
Well, the red, what people need, that the red is New California and the yellow is Old California.
Okay, so my question is, are the representatives who presently are in these red areas, are they on board? Or is this just something that you came up with?
No, they're some are on board. We have been going up and down the state talking to counties. We have a number of counties that we've talked to that are absolutely excited about the idea. County supervisors and other people. To do this, you don't necessarily need their permission. In fact, you don't.
Really? Wow.
No. Why would you need their permission? Especially if the founding fathers made a very, very low threshold for these kind of movements. The threshold for approval for the state just to move on to Congress is a simple resolution with whoever happens to be in the Assembly or the Senate at the time for a vote. It doesn't have to be formalized by a bill. In fact, it shouldn't be, because if you have a bill, that means the governor has to sign it. And in Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, it says specifically that if you want to form a state from a pre-existing state, then you have to get the permission of the legislature concerned, and then that of the Congress. So it leaves out the executive branch, and it leaves out the judiciary. The judiciary can't touch this movement. They can't even render any decisions about it. And the same with the executive. Tim Draper, a couple of years ago, he thought he was going to, in fact, it was 5 years ago, he thought he was going to create 3 new states out of California. And he went
I remember that. It kind of died. Yeah. I don't remember what happened.
He spent $12 million to get this on the ballot. Well, Fox News asked me at the time, because we had declared independence, well, what do you think about this movement? And I said, it's dead on arrival. It's not going to happen. It's unconstitutional. And of course, that just inflamed Tim Draper and everybody else. And so, well, we're going to put this on the ballot. And Tim Draper was indignant. And he said, we don't need a constitution to make this happen. I said, well, everybody's got to follow the Constitution.
So what happened with the vote? Did it get voted?
Well, what happened, it got on the ballot. But once it was on the ballot, it was challenged quickly, and it was thrown out. It was thrown out by the California State Supreme Court 6-0, because it was unconstitutional. They said it's unconstitutional. You can't do this through the executive branch. A vote would indicate. So they tossed it out $12 million later. He had an earlier one that he tried to get 12 states in. That also cost him $12 million, and he lost that one. That was in 2012, in that era. And then he did this one. And so it was interesting. His advisor called me later, and he said, how are you guys doing this? You guys seem to be impermeable from criticism on this issue. And I said, no. I said, we're just following the Constitution. We're organizing our counties. We're doing exactly what happened in West Virginia. We're following the model that's set up by the Constitution. And then once he realized what we did, he says, well, then we could never have done that. I said, no, you couldn't have. You couldn't have done that. And that's why the courts threw it out.
Getting back to that map. So are the people in line in those counties with what you're doing? I'm trying to understand what the red means, what development. Have you gotten the people on board, or you've got who's on board with those red?
Well, what we've done is we don't need all the people to be on board.
Okay.
All this that they don't get permissions to be on board, and that's one of the things that people need to understand is that in the case of even West Virginia, you had whole counties that were fighting being involved with West Virginia, but West Virginia said this is going to be our state, and we're going to go to Congress and make it so, and they did. And there was about a dozen of the counties that didn't want to go along with the West Virginia model, but they had to go along because the Congress said so. And that's basically what we're doing with this particular situation. Although we have representatives, because we set up county chairs and committees in all the counties that we chartered in. So there's actually representation for all the counties right now in New California for all the 50s. There's 56 either whole or part of counties involved with New California. We do have representation there. And again, one of the models that we set up, and this is interesting the way we did this, is that we set up a county chair would be selected. The executive branch would select the county chairs based upon their applications and if they wanted what they wanted to do. But once we'd had the county chair set up, the county chair was tasked with setting up the very first thing, selecting a senator for their county. So right now, in all 56 counties, we have senators for almost all those kinds, about 50 of them right now. We have vacancies and that come and go. The vacancies come and go based upon people moving out of the state and rather than staying on the ground. But we've overcome a lot of that now. But we designated that every county will have a senator when we go to Congress, because we're going to break the mold. And that mold is it Reynolds versus Sims is not going to be a part of how we are going to govern. We're going to exercise our 10th Amendment constitutional right to govern and not be hindered by the Supreme Court decision. So we will bring back a Republican form of government at the state legislative level. which is one of the things that's guaranteed. Right now, with Reynolds versus Sims, they've erased the guarantee clause on republicanism. And
the Sims, what was that clause? When was that passed?
Reynolds versus Sims was a Supreme Court decision back in 1964.
Okay. That was the one that switched everything to within the state only to population and not to
Correct.
areas. So
It's,
eliminated. If you're living in California and you're not in these 8 counties, you're not represented, period.
That's right. That's they get the bulk of the representatives because they have the population density.
Which is why you want to bring in so many illegals to come into the cities, because
exactly. That's exactly right. That's why they want to build the cities like they're doing, stack and pack housing, the whole 9 yards, so that they have the population base and they have the representation, and they destroy the Republican form of government. One of the ways that you destroy the country is you reverse engineer the Constitution.
Right. So that's the old saying, well, the new saying, which is you'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. And
exactly.
That's the communist way, basically.
That's exactly right.
What you're doing is what basically Lincoln was successful and doing, and Virginia was ready to do during the right before the Civil War. And believe it or not, I'm just reading the book. I have a signed copy by Chartoff from Grant. And I just read how there was a big split between Virginia. Virginia was a very big state on the East Coast.
That's right.
But the issue was, and a lot of people in history saying, oh, it wasn't slavery. It wasn't. It was absolutely slavery. That was the issue that split the country.
That's exactly right. And interestingly enough, when California became a state, and this is history that people, don't want to talk about or they discount, but when California became a state in 1850, the big issue was slavery. And the South wanted California to be a slave state. Well, there were no slaves in California. Slavery was not there prior to California being a state. In fact, California was never even a state. It was more of a protectorate of the United States and had been since 1846. And along comes the gold rush, all of a sudden now the treasury of the United States is filling up with over 750 tons of gold. In the first 7 years.
50 tons of gold.
Tons of gold. It made the United States the richest country on the planet.
So in other words, the gold from California was the richest find in the whole world?
That's in the whole world. That's correct. Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought, it's funny. I didn't realize I heard about the gold rush. I figured some people got there early and got something and most people got nothing, but I didn't realize there was so much gold.
Right. That's why the abundance was huge and still is. This is the thing about the globalists today. The real fight is California for the globalists. That's the real fight. And we know that. They want California. And you have globalists and communists and Nazis, National Socialists, and fascist in the government of California. That's what this government is all. See, they're going to shut us down again, probably.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Anyway, that's what they're trying to do. So that's the big fight. We recognize this. I recognized this years ago, that this is what they're trying to do. And so the founding fathers gave us a way out of this. They put in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution and Section 3 of the Constitution. And Section 3 says that if you want to form a state from a pre-existing state, then you have to go to the state legislature concerned and then that of the Congress. And of course, we're at that point where we looked at the legislature just exactly as West Virginia looked at its options at this point in time in state split.
This is a key point. So you go to legislature, you have to go to legislation, then you have to go to the Congress. Okay,
to get approval.
You went to the legislature. What happened?
Well, what happened was we chose exactly as what West Virginia chose. West Virginia at the time, when they were forming the state, of course, Virginia wanted to join the Confederacy. There was all that hubbub going on. And once Virginia had made up its mind to go to the Confederacy, they knew that they would not be able to appeal to the Virginia legislature because it would not be part of the United States. They would vacate the positions. So there was no option literally in the Constitution for Virginia to say, okay, we're going to take our appeal to the legislature of Virginia, and then we're going to move on. So they went to the Congress and they said, we can't do this because, we can't do that part of it, but will you take us anyway? And the Congress said, no, you still got to get approval from the legislature concerned and satisfy Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution. And so they went back kind of dejected. They said, well, we can't do that because they're not here. They're not representative. The only thing that they represent is the Confederacy, which is not part of the Union. So on the way back, Francis Pierpont, who was one of the attorneys and part of the group, he said, well, we'll just form our own reorganized government of Virginia. We're all Virginians, and we want to become West Virginians. But in the meantime, we can form a government because the other government has left us. It's vacated its position constitutionally. So that's what they did. They set up a reorganized government of Virginia.
And that's what you're doing. But the point is, when you went to the legislators, what was their take on this?
Well, initially we did meet with legislators. And they were one or two of them were very hot on the idea. The rest of them were not. And it's obvious because remember that the way the voting goes in California, especially with the election systems and so on, it's very corrupt. We all know this. Everybody knows this. This is nothing new. Everybody knows if you're in the system, you're part of the system and you're corrupted by the system. But so we looked at this and we looked at all the laws and we said, well, first of all, does California government, does it comply with the current Constitution? Is it in compliance? In other words, is it doing the things like in the guarantee?
Oh, okay. So I'm beginning to wake up. I know I'm slow here, Paul. So just like West Virginia said, hey, Virginia is not in compliance with the Constitution, which gives us leave to form a new state. Now you're doing the same thing because the function of the state in California today is not in line with the original Constitution.
Right. And there's some elements that we all need to know. This is the biggest learning lesson that the nation can have right now. Because in Article 4, Section 4, the guarantee clause, it says this. There's 3 statements in there that are critical to hold this nation together, that we must be in compliance with. And every state needs to adhere to this, and the federal government needs to adhere to this, or else we do not have a union. So
Okay.
this is what they are. The first one is, then the guarantee clause is that the federal government and hence the state government, when they make their constitution, they must provide for a Republican form of government. There's no place in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the Declaration of Independence that talks about a democracy. They loathe the idea of a democracy. No one ever wants a democracy because they want a Republican representative form of government. The second one was to be free from invasion. And then the third one is to be free from domestic violence. Now, you see, you can reverse engineer the Constitution and destroy it by legislation, which is exactly what they did in Virginia's case when they left the Union. And of course, in our case, in California, nobody's going to sit there and say that we have a Republican form of government, especially since in the modifications of the Constitution that California has made since 1879, they actually say that their document is a democratic document. Okay, and the founding fathers wanted a democracy, so they null and voided themselves. So we said, we're going to form a reorganized California, which we've done. We have a reorganized government.
So what you're saying is, just like West Virginia said, you're not in compliance with the Constitution because of your stance on slavery and because you say you want to leave the United States.
Right.
What are you stating that going on in California that they are doing that is not constitutional? Just, I know we've talked about it from a high level, but let's be very specific. What are they doing that's not constitutional?
Well, just about everything.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they're not, yeah, you know, they're legislating laws that are really helping the criminals. They're legislating laws that are, you know, helping get rid of businesses. They're taking away our rights, stripping them one by one. They're attacking the Constitution. Take a look at what they're doing to the Second Amendment as an example. These are just a few of the things. Everything they do legislatively, they do outside the Constitution.
Do you want to hear something very interesting, just a little bit off topic, but on what you were saying about the Second Amendment? Did you know that in Israel that citizens cannot carry weapons? They're very against it. Well, with the recent attacks, they are changing their mind. They're thinking that the populace should be, because there would have been a lot less murder if the citizens were armed.
Right. That's what it looks like when you don't have a Second Amendment.
Yeah, they can just go in anywhere and kill anybody they want. There's no one stopping it.
And our governor, of course, was made a dictator during the COVID thing, and he still is the dictator. He has usurped power from the legislature, and he did so by, with the COVID excuse. And of course, one of the things they did was they subverted the laws. The legislature did, and the governor signed it, which I think it was Jerry Brown, that a governor can have unlimited power and authority in an emergency. And there's no brakes on that. In other words, whenever there's an emergency and you want just executive action rather than legislative action because of the emergency, you know, you want to expend $1 million to help the flood victims over here, and you want to do that. That's all well and fine, but in a republic, you're going to have a break on that so that the governor doesn't have unbridled power forever.
If there is a law that gives a person in power unlimited power in the event of an emergency, all they have to do is create an emergency. Look what is happening in Maui. It's exactly what happened in Maui.
That's exactly right.
Okay, what's going on there? Hey, they just 2 weeks before the fire, they came out with this law saying that they have unlimited capability to rename land, and all of a sudden, boom, this happened. So
fire.
This is why I love what you're saying here. This is why what the laws that are going on in California are not constitutional, because it gives too much power, and it takes power away from the people. Specifically, it gives power to the governor without limit in whenever he or she declares an emergency. It takes power away from all these brown areas, red areas here. They are not represented in government. Let me ask you a question. Let's say I was a representative over here in what San Fernando County, let's say, right?
That's San Bernardino.
Okay, thank you. San Bernardino County. What do? I have nothing to do. I basically don't have a vote. What's their job? They can't be happy with what they're doing. They get outvoted every time. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
So this is representation by the people, for the people, but this is representation by the leaders for the leaders. Would you say that's true?
Correct? And if you take a look at this map, as you see it here, when you go back to the old rolls and you go back to voting, we use to determine who really wins the elections. We use algorithms to determine, and the Dr. Shiva algorithm tipped it off, and we have our teams that have worked on all the different elections, and you'll find that in that red area, it's all Republican.
Yes, I mean, because how long ago was California Republican state? It wasn't that long, was it?
The last time it was a Republican state was 1966.
Okay.
It's been dominated by way of the elections, corrupted blue state, but it's not a blue state. I've been to all 58 of these counties. I've talked in all 58 of these counties. These are not blue counties. They're deep red counties. They're underrepresented because the media controls the narrative of what's going on. And of course, it's backed up by a legislature.
You've been in all 58 counties. We have an election coming up. I know this is not your issue, but I'm going to ask you anyway, Paul. In your opinion, are there better controls in place so that we have a fair election in 2024, by your opinion?
Absolutely not. Not yet. I see the trend changing. There's two big events that happened in the last couple of weeks. And one of them was the rendering of a decision for $85,000 as a fine against the county clerk recorder of Nevada County because she was withholding information about the 2020 election.
Is that Nevada County? Is that Nevada or is that in California?
It's in Nevada County, which is in California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the other one is what just happened as a buyout for a county clerk recorder of $800,000 and plus $250,000 a year as a buyout for a registrar of voters in Riverside County. And this is the tip of the spear for the corruption. There will be a change in California. We have been driving change as part of our new California state movement by giving declarations and so on to various and sundry county officials who are not in favor of the oath of office. And
are these your 10 declarations here? Are you talking about those?
Those are the 10 declarations of truth.
Please go to newcaliforniastate.com, newcaliforniastate.com. You can just page down a little bit. You see there 10 declarations. Which one would you like me to click on? Anyone's fine. Let's but
these 10 declarations were preceded by 190 grievances that we read on every Tuesday on the steps of superior courts throughout the country, throughout the state. And these are some of the opening statements you can, that talks about the setup, if you will.
Whenever a form of government has become destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. And this is the new state.
The new state's Declaration of Independence in part. It's only part of it.
Wow. That's interesting.
You got to, the thing is, if you go back to that document, I want to read these words so it resonates with the audience.
Was this the one? I forget.
Either they all have the same statements of fact to begin with.
Okay, good.
Right there. And I want to read this information to you. Okay. So it says the new California State Declaration of Independence of January 15, 2018. Now, this is just a part of the declaration, but I want to read it to you because it really mimics the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. When a long train of abuses and acts to seize and hold the people's power without legal authority and pursuing invariably the same object that clearly demonstrates a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. The history of the present governor and government of California is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of a tyranny over the counties of New California and the state of California. I mean, that's almost direct language right from the original Declaration of Independence. Now, that's exactly what we're going through. And when we wrote all this stuff up and came up with our Declaration of Independence, we couldn't help but not put that in there. Because it's happening now to everybody, isn't it? Every state's going through this.
We got about 6 minutes. We got plenty of time left, but tell me about, I'm going to stop sharing here. Tell me about what's next on your agenda. We have the election coming in 2024. There was a major article as I began the hour with you in Gateway Pundit talking about, it literally said, you can save the election for the United States. I'm not sure exactly.
Right now, currently in the configuration in California, they have 52 electoral votes. We lost one because of population decrease, people leaving the state.
Oh, by the way, I live in Florida. They just announced Florida passed New York. We have more people in Florida than New York.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. But California has been losing people, and we lost one in the 2020 census. but California still has 52 members of the House of Representatives and 2 senators. That makes 54 electoral votes. Now, it's kind of interesting because when we take the split, it's going to be basically 27 and 27.
Yep.
That's what will happen. And so what that also means is that the 27 on the new California side, everybody looks at it and says, well, it's going to be Republican. Of course it will. There's no question about it, because you're going to get rid of the California Constitution, and we're going to get rid of the California Constitution as it currently stands and go back in the reorganized government to the 1849 Constitution, the organic Constitution, which provided for it. Look at, if you want to become a state in the Union of States called the United States of America, the first thing they're going to write when they pass it and approve it in Congress is that we provide a Republican form of government. That's the very first thing, and that's the first lines in the bill, that we have to provide that. So now, right now, the states, for the most part, don't provide that. And California is not providing a Republican form of government. Texas isn't even providing that right now.
Now, do you need donations? Do you have a place to donate?
Yeah, we need donations like crazy. And
Now,
up in the top, you got 2 tabs right there. You can press on those and donate. We definitely need a lot of money for a legal fund. Money is a major commodity right now for us, and people can go there and contribute. And, we really would appreciate the funds if you can make it that way. It's your liberty. Listen, as California goes, so goes the nation. And we're going in the right direction. We're going to set up a brand new economy. We're going to do all the things that have to be done to make it right. And to make a new state that's going to be a productive state for the rest of the union. Plus, the other thing, too, the added advantage, double down, we will be able to manage and control the recovery of California because we will have such massive resources. We're going to be able to help them along with their payoff of their debt. Their governmental system will completely change. It's not going to be the communist system. It's going to be a Republican form of government. So the strength of California and New California together doubling down is just going to be enormous. I will bet you that we can do what happened in Nevada. We can do right now what happened in Nevada. We can make New California a state before the election and guarantee that these 27 electoral votes go to Donald Trump. I can see that. But I got another little caveat. Once this split happens, I will bet you that California turns red, becomes a red state again, because the impact and the influences of the current government will be gone from California. So it's a double whammy. It's a great thing for the union. We are in it to win it. Winning it right now.
We have 2 minutes here. What's next?
What's next for us is that we are going to continue our quest to go to Washington. We've already gone to Washington, sent paperwork to the Speaker of the House. That was McCarthy. We're going to go back now to the next speaker, because it doesn't matter who's the president, doesn't matter, who's in the Supreme Court. What it matters is getting this approved by the Congress, because they're the ones that are going to be paying the bills. We will be a contributor to the taxes of the United States, not somebody who's, suckling off the teat right now, the government. And California right now has got a big problem economically. They're bankrupt as a state. They're not paying their bills. Doesn't look like they're going to make it much further than October right now.
Yeah, but let's be honest. If there is in the legislature of the United States a president who is a Democrat, he'll just bail him out.
No, they won't. That's not true. The United States doesn't have the money to do that right now, and that's very evident. They don't have the money. They got the one-time bump, and that was in 2021. That set us back, but our projections is that they will not have the money, and they're not going to bring more money because of inflation. They can't have the inflation going on.
That's crazy. So we got just a few 30 seconds left. Please visit us at CFC page, at CFC page on YouTube. We're live there. We're on WPAT 9:30 a.m.com on the radio right now. We're with Paul Preston of New California. He is confident that he's be able to form a new state, the 51st state of New California, before the election next year. And at least the Gateway Pundit says that that will save the election. So please go to newcaliforniastate.com, and thank you all for joining us. Okay, hold on. Okay, well, thank you. We're still